I found it quite significant that I'd been here a whole year and I hadn't heard a testimony yet. And so we discussed it and I said, well, I haven't been up for a little while. I haven't spoken in a bit, so maybe I could do it. And so that's why I'm here. And I find it important that we do share about ourselves and about our faith. And I get it when I read John 17, if you guys have a Bible with you, John 17, verse 20. I've probably read this verse 100 times, and I've actually said it here before too. And I'll just read from it. 17, verse 20. My prayer is not for them alone, he's speaking about his disciples. I pray also for those who will believe in me through their message, that all of them may be one. Father, just as you are in me, and I am in you, may they also be in us, so that the world may believe that you have sent me. I've given them the glory that you gave me, that they may be one as we are one, I in them and you in me, so that they may be brought to complete unity. Then the world will know that you sent me and have loved them even as you have loved me. Now what's significant, this complete unity and I in them and you in me, he's trying to get us to become one. And that's not an easy thing to really decipher. I mean, when he says he wants us to be one as he is one with God, we even claim that Jesus is God. So he's trying to say that I should be you. Like that doesn't, it's hard to understand that. But what he's trying to do is bring us to complete unity. And when I look around at civilization, when I look at our town and everything that's in it, I don't see that whatsoever. I don't know if you guys see complete unity, but I sure don't. And I think it's a big problem, and I think it's something that we need to address. And so where do we start is definitely not easy, and I'm not going to tell you, how to get this done, how to be one as he is one with God, but I think to start, at least I could just share a little bit about me. And why it's so hard for me to share, I think it's ingrained in all of us, men especially. I don't know about the women as much, but for men, we've kind of been brought up in a society where it's better to keep things contained, struggles and personal issues and all those kind of things. I learned it from my dad. We never really talked a whole lot on like an emotional level. He was a great dad and I had a great upbringing, but we never really bonded that way, and I think it progressed through as I got older. And I believe the saying, you are what you eat, applies to almost everything. And I grew up with him that way, and that's just how it is. And so for me, it's really difficult to talk, and I don't think anybody here really knows anything about me and from where I've been. And so I guess I'll just start. So as a kid, I had a great upbringing. It was awesome. Had lots of fun. Parents were great, loving family. Fought with my sisters like any other kid did. And, I just had a lot of fun. Nothing really to go on there, just a great upbringing. In high school, things were a little bit different. I had lots of friends and I had a great time, but I think I struggled with self-esteem issues. Personally, actually, I brought this. This is my Go card from when I was in grade 11. And it's so funny because I found it recently, maybe a couple months ago. And Leah and even Tegan, they were over and I showed them and they just picked up and started laughing. Like they were laughing at it. I was a goofy looking kid. And you guys can pass that around if you want to look. I'm comfortable with it now, is what I'm saying, right? But I was a good goofy looking kid. I mean, not much has really changed, but I'm a little more accepting of the fact. And so, I was the kind of guy, I liked girls, right? Like who didn't, right? And everybody's got girlfriends around me and I never really did. And so I think it played something on with the self-esteem issues. And I'll touch on that later, but then in the last year of high school, I met Katrina, my ex-wife, and we weren't together for very long when we found out we were having Leah. And I'll never forget when I told my mom. So I came home from hockey and I played pretty high level hockey. My dad, he was expecting college, every parent wants their kid to succeed in life. And he was expecting me to go to college and, do everything necessary to have a good career and those kind of things. And so hockey was a big part of that because we didn't have any money for college. I kind of had to do it myself. And so I'll never forget when I came home the one time, and it was late, and my mom was on the couch, and I opened the door and I walked in, and she said, "How was hockey?" And I said, "Well, it was good, but I actually quit the team." And so I was 18 at the time. It was summer right after high school. And she said, "Well, why?" And I said, "Well, Katrina's pregnant." And she just burst out crying. And it really, there's just something there. It's burned in my memory because I just felt so ashamed, and I felt like I was really letting her down, and I was letting my dad down, that they wanted the best for me, and this just a big mistake. I felt ashamed, and I shouldn't, but I did, and it's been burned in my memory. It's very tough to let your family down, because that's what I felt like. I just felt like I let them down. But anyways, so things moved on. I was 18, and went from boy to man. I pretty much looked like that still at 18. And so I went from boy to man in just one summer kind of thing. So I quit hockey, quit smoking weed and all that kind of stuff, the stuff I did as a kid, and thought I'd, man up a bit. And so I got a job, I worked a lot. And what I learned from my dad was that it's the man's job to make money. And that was a big mistake. Not that it's a mistake. I mean, it's obviously our job to provide for the family, but I thought that was the big job and the most important one. And so I worked a lot. I worked Monday to Friday, doing usually 12-hour shifts. And I joined the military. I wanted to become a police officer, and I couldn't go to college, and they like to see something that you've done with your life. And so I thought, well, I'll join the military because at least I can get money and experience at the same time. And so I was away a lot. I'd go away for months at a time. Weekends were taken up with that. So we were making good money. I was banking everything, never worried about money, but it really took a strain on our relationship, me and Katrina. And when Leah was 2, I was really aware of it at this time, so I quit the military because Katrina hated it. So I ended up quitting, but the damage had been done, I think. And I came, I was trying to come home a lot more, and she was going to work more, and I could tell there was something wrong, and she just, we just sat down, and she just said, "I don't love you anymore, Nathan. I'm in love with another guy that she worked with," and I was devastated. I mean, I still kind of am, but it really, I think part of it was that I was away so much, and I didn't really spend the time with her that I should have, and a little bit nervous sharing all this, but so that really, it really brought the self-esteem issues back up. I mean, I felt rejected. I was embarrassed. It was so embarrassing. I'm thinking, what do people think of me now, right? She's leaving me for another guy. What's wrong with me, right? And so it really, that winter was very dark for me. That was 4 years ago, I guess. It was a really tough time. Moved out. Now I had to work even more, because now I had to pay for child support and everything else. And so I'd have my kid on the weekends, and if anybody's had a child, the terrible twos, you totally know that that's a real thing. They don't just say the terrible twos, but it's a real thing. Yeah, it's a real thing. He knows what's up. And so I worked a lot Monday to Friday to provide, and then the weekends I had my kid alone. I mean, I had help, but I was alone, and it was really hard. It was a winter I'll never forget. It was really, really down in the dumps. And I remember something was wrong, and I kind of found an old Bible that my mom had given me when I was probably a teenager. And so I just opened it, and just something happened. I felt the presence of Jesus. I felt like I was just running away from my problems the whole time, that I was just kind of kidding myself that there was no God. And I just decided at that moment, it's time to man up in a spiritual way and to get back into it. And I did, and I think I have been. I mean, it's only been 4 years since I've actually cared about God, and I've taken it very seriously. And I think it's something that we should all take very seriously. It's not just something we should put on the back burner, show Sunday every once in a while. Oh, I haven't cracked my Bible in 2 years. I haven't prayed in 2 years. Like, I don't think that's really, I don't see how God is working in that person if they're not mindful of God in the first place. And so basically that brings me to today. I mean, I don't really want to go into too much detail about myself. I've shared the gist of it. But how that relates to us, and that's me, that's about me. And I've never shared those kind of things with you guys before. And so now you know a little bit more. And I think what's important about that is that we all kind of open up and share about ourselves. If we're going to be brought to complete unity as Jesus wants us, then we have to not feel ashamed about where we've been and what we've done. I mean, we've all done, terrible things. I'd say I've done terrible things before in my life. And it's hard not to feel ashamed. It's hard not to feel like you've let people down, because you do. But it's important to overcome those. And I think just opening up and talking about those kind of things is a good way to do it. And, it's hard because, like I said, growing up in this society, we're not really supposed to do that. You're not supposed to tell your neighbors. Culture pushes us to be selfish. You just turn on the TV. It's all about you. I see a lot of people are pushing for divorce, telling people, oh yeah, you can do it on your own. There's this selfish tendency within society that's really bringing everybody down. And I wanted to quote Fight Club. I feel like every time I get up here, I say something about Fight Club. And that's going to be my mission from now on. Whenever I speak, I've got to have a Fight Club quote. But I think Tyler Durden really gets this problem in society. And so I'm going to give you a monologue. I don't even need to write it down. I've seen the movie a million times. So he looks around, and he's with his guys, and he says, I've seen here some of the strongest and smartest men who've ever lived. I've seen all this potential, and I see squander. An entire generation pumping gas, waiting tables, slaves with white collars. Advertising has us chasing cars and clothes, working jobs we hate for things we don't need. We're the middle children of history, man, with no purpose or place. We have no great war, no great depression. Our great war is a spiritual war. Our great depression is our lives. And I think he nails it. When I was in the military, I learned something about war, even though I'd never been in war. But I learned this idea that when you're in tough times, when you're in stressful situations, when they try to simulate war anyways, that you're relying on each other, you really rely on your buddy. I remember I was in Wainwright for 1 month, and 2 men, Thoman and Vermette, these 2 guys became my best friends. I'd only known them for a month. I felt like I knew everything about them. I felt like we were brothers. There's something about putting people together in difficult situations, and they come out as one. I felt we were one. And so I'm trying to relate this because to get this idea of unity, that's what I think about. I think about those guys with me. And so the problem with today's day, it's not a problem, but we live in peace. We don't need to rely on our neighbor. I don't need to care about my neighbor. If he dies, it doesn't affect me in any way, physically. I'm not reliant on him. But in older cultures, in war times, you rely on your buddy. If he's going down, that's taking a part of you. You rely on him for hunting, for war, for anything. And so I think Tyler Durden nails that. We have no great war. Our great war is a spiritual war. We're fighting a spiritual war here. And that's part of bringing each other together. And that should bring us together. We should feel like we are fighting a spiritual war and that we are relying on each other. We should be relying on every single person. That reminds me of another quote. If you've ever seen the movie Blood Diamond. You have? Okay, you might know what I'm talking about then. This moment where Leo DiCaprio, love Leo, he's great in this scene, but he's getting really emotional. And the woman beside him asks him about his family, his parents. And he says, when I was 9, my mother was raped and killed in front of me. And my father was decapitated and hung from a barn. And he turns to her and he's not mad at these people. What he says is, can God ever forgive us for what we've done to each other? And I think that's very significant. Maybe not the question, but the idea itself. Can God ever forgive us for what we've done to each other? See, he's bringing this unity concept to everything, not just me, oh, well, am I saved? Like I don't need to care about you guys because I'm saved. I'm going to heaven, right? He's bringing this idea that are we saved? Like, is there hope for us, He doesn't think so. As you learn, as the scene progresses, he doesn't think so. I think there is hope for us, but we have to get to this idea of unity that Jesus is bringing here. And so, I feel like in this society we don't have that, and it's difficult, but I think we just need to battle back. Our great war is a spiritual war, and our Great Depression is our lives. We're not going through a Great Depression, we're going through a time of wealth. Everybody's got more than they need. We don't rely on our brothers, And so then we get into here and our lives become the depression. I'm just going to close, keeping it short and sweet, with Psalm 13. Just as I was writing, I didn't really write much down, but as I was going through what I was going to say, just this psalm kind of popped out at me. So if you have a Bible, I can't seem to find it, but Psalm 13. Where are you? There. It really popped out at me, and maybe it'll do something for you, I don't really know. But here it is. How long, Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I wrestle with my thoughts and day after day have sorrow in my heart? How long will my enemy triumph over me? Look on me and answer, Lord my God. Give light to my eyes, or I will sleep in death. And my enemies will say, I have overcome him, and my foes will rejoice when I fall. But I trust in your unfailing love. My heart rejoices in the salvation. I will sing the Lord's praise, for he has been good to me. To me, this psalm it reminds me of the wartime, the depression time. He's going through hard times. He's crying out to God. He's in desperate need of God. And I think that's something our society doesn't feel like we're in need of, is God. We don't feel like we need God, and we don't feel like we need each other. And we're living in the most privileged time ever in history. And so I feel like we just need to battle back. So I challenge you to think about that, to think about the idea that Jesus wants us to be one the way he is one with God. That's quite the challenge, but it should be attainable, I think. I mean, I've never seen it, but I think it's attainable. And I think we should just open up and share with each other a little bit about ourselves, to not feel ashamed, and to really bring a sense of community. I mean, if you feel like we're community, I only see most of you guys 2 hours out of 168 hours a month or a week. That's a very small fraction, but 1% of the time I actually see you guys. So I think there needs to be something. We need to be more of a family. We need to open up, learn about each other. I don't really know much about any of you guys, and nothing, you've heard from me, and I haven't really shared all the bad things I've done, but we shouldn't be ashamed of what we've done and learn about each other. And so that's my challenge for today.